A privilege to spend this time with you, and the fact that you would give up a beautiful day, quite frankly, to come be here with us means a lot. So this talk is one where I want to give a little more evidence. I like giving evidence to answer some of the questions that were brought up. But before I do that, do you guys remember that first quote that Juan gave you in his last talk? I think it was the first quote, the long one that is like, after 3 minutes, you're like, what? Who was it, Juan? Kierkegaard, right? Remember that quote? All right. This is my version of Kierkegaard, okay? Because PhD, dummy, right? So here's my illustration of that whole point.
All right, listen up. Today I want to talk about giving 110%. Giving 100% means giving everything you got. Giving 110% means giving 10% more than is humanly possible. If we're going to win as a team, we need 100% of you guys giving 110% 100% of the time. If only 50% of you guys give 110% and 50% of you guys give 100%, I guarantee you 100%, we'd only win 50% of our games. Suppose 75% of the 110% gave only 50%, and 50% of the 100% gave 25%, and 75% of the 110% were not feeling 100%, then we'd be in a heap of trouble. That's why we need 100% of you guys giving 110%, 100% of the time. Okay.
Well, I think Louis got that one. All right. So here we go. Dealing with some of the stuff that Juan's touched on and gave you some pieces, but I want to give you some other pieces to tie in with it. It's Noah's flood. Is it a fact or is it a fantasy? Because that is one of the areas that's definitely under attack. Noah's flood, is it a fact or a fantasy? Well, I'm a big one on defining terms, so let's jump in and define our terms real quickly. What is a fantasy? Well, it's a noun. It means imagination, especially when extravagant and unrestrained. What's a fact? Well, we take a look. Fact is something known to exist or to have happened. So in order to know if something is a fact or if it's a fantasy, we would want to go look for evidence. Right? Okay, I got to wake you guys up. You know, we'd have to have some evidence. If we had evidence, that would confirm whether it's a fact or fantasy, right? Am I? Okay, good. But you know what I hear a lot as well? The evidence speaks for itself. You know, the evidence just speaks for itself. No, it doesn't. Evidence does not speak. Evidence doesn't say a thing. Evidence just is. And evidence is interpreted, as I've said many times in the worldview part. So I want to give you a real practical illustration. What is this? Be specific. Okay. What kind of car? Under a, okay. Which one is correct? This one or this one? Or both? Which one is real? Which one is not real? If you want to know if something is a fact or a fantasy, you know what you better do? You better look for some evidence. And when you get some evidence, you better dig down and make sure that that evidence fits. You better pick it up, look at it real close, and see where it really takes you. We need to be critical thinkers, as we've been telling you over and over again. Now, I say that there is evidence for a global flood. I read about it in Genesis. And it's pretty clear. We read in Genesis 7, in the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heaven were opened. And we read further on, and the waters prevailed so mightily on the earth that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. So this is telling us that there was water that covered the entire planet to a depth of 15 cubits above even the highest mountains. So this was a global flood. It wasn't just a known world flood, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense when you read the rest of the scripture. And what else do we read? It says that all the flesh died that moved on the earth. All the flesh died that moved on the earth. Birds, livestock, beasts, and all swarming creatures that swarm on the earth, and all mankind. Everything on the dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life died. So is there any evidence that something like this actually occurred? Is there actual evidence for a global flood? Well, there's two things that we'll take a look at today that I think absolutely show that. One is rapid deposition. If you find evidence for rapid deposition and it's global, that's a very good couple of pieces of evidence that would make you come to the conclusion that there was a real global flood. So first, is there evidence for rapid deposition? Let me introduce you to an ichthyosaur. You guys know what an ichthyosaur is, right? It was like a porpoise, but it was a reptile. And it was kind of unique. Well, let me show you a fossil of an ichthyosaur that was discovered. And it was the head. So these are the facts right here. This is what was found. They found an ichthyosaur skull that was 15 inches long, three-dimensional. Now, I show you these pictures here, but it's all of this thing right here. It's just showing you from different angles, flipping it, right? So what is so special about a 15-inch ichthyosaur skull that would say, well, this shows that there was a rapid deposition? Because it was found in what is called polystrate. It's called polystrate. Anybody know what polystrate means? You can know this. Just break the two words down. Poly is multiple, straight, strata, layers. So you had a skull that's 15 inches long that extended through multiple layers. So what's that got to do with anything? Well, according to the evolutionary model, which we need to know better than the world, how do you get these layers, these stratigraphic layers? Particles fall out of the water over time, and they build up in layers. And one of the illustrations that I use for you parents that want to teach and do sorts of things, use napkins. Napkins are great because they're folded. So you got like 8 layers right there, okay? And each one of those layers, according to the evolutionary model, took an amount of time. Just be generous and say a year. Get a stack of napkins like this. Then get another stack with a different color. And you take those stack of napkins, and each one of those layers represent 1 year. How many layers are there? Thousands. Thousands of years. It's so simple to see slow, gradual processes. Are you starting to see a problem? How do you explain an ichthyosaur skeleton that's in multiple layers, buried vertically in horizontal layers? Because if those particles are falling out, taking a slow, gradual time to build up, you shouldn't find that. It just shouldn't exist. Because as these layers build up over time, these get hard, then the top one is soft. This thing went through 15 inches of deposition. Now, how did it happen? I'm going to let them give the explanation from their perspective. We don't have an evidence problem, okay? Ichthyosaur is swimming along. Ichthyosaur dives. Ichthyosaur does a kamikaze nosedive and implants itself in 15 inches of sediment. The body is exposed, so the body rots off and goes away. That's why we don't find the body. And just the skull stays embedded in that 15 inches of mud and muck. And then over millions of years, you get yourself an ichthyosaur skeleton fossil. Anybody got a problem? Here's my problem. According to the evolutionary model, how much geologic time does this 15 inches of dirt represent? 1 million years. I don't believe these dates. But this is what they teach. Do you think that after 1 million years of these things laying down, that they would still be soft enough for an ichthyosaur to do a kamikaze nosedive and embed itself in 15 inches of muck? Guys, not happening. You want evidence for rapid deposition? This is it. What happened? This thing got buried. Very quickly, those layers were built up around it while it was facing vertical. By the way, I can show you a bunch of these polystrate fossils, a bunch, much bigger than 15 inches. Here's another piece of evidence that shows rapid deposition. Ichthyosaur in the process of giving birth. Ladies, you do not want the birth process to take millions of years. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? This is rapid, this is catastrophic, and there were 2 other babies at least inside the mother's stomach. You want evidence for rapid deposition? How about Fish eating fish. Poor boy didn't get to swallow dinner. How do slow, gradual processes explain that? It doesn't. But what does explain it? You got a little fish swimming along. You got a big fish that comes along. Big fish is hungry. Big fish sees little fish. Big fish takes a chomp on little fish. But he doesn't get to swallow him because he gets covered by dirt very rapidly and then is fossilized. And I can show you a lot of these fossil fish eating fish. As a matter of fact, Chicago Field Museum in November, we're going to be leading training through there. We actually, check this out, we rent a room in the Chicago Field Museum. They know who we are. We rent a room in the Chicago Field Museum, we train, then we go up and put application on their exhibits from a Christian biblical perspective. It is awesome. We turned the Chicago Field Museum into a creationist museum. It's great. Our tax dollars pay for the exhibits. Why shouldn't we be in there, right? So they actually have a fossil fish in there. Here's another one. At least he got to swallow dinner. He just didn't get to digest it. You want evidence for rapid deposition? Go look at the fossils. Go to American Museum of Natural History. Go to Harvard Museum of Natural History. Go look at any museum. We do a debunked on this, and I'll share this one with you. And it's called The Fossil Record Proves Evolution. Debunked. All right? We kind of went over this with some of the young people in the other room where we got really attacked on this one. I mean, a guy really attacked us. I'll share something in a second. But let me show this to you in its entirety.
We've unearthed millions of fossils around the world, so with all this evidence, so to speak, it's clear that the fossil record proves evolution, right? Well, actually, no. Didn't when Darwin was alive, and hasn't since he's been gone. In fact, Chucky D himself knew this when he wrote the following. Geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic chain, and this, perhaps, is the most obvious and gravest objection which can be urged against my theory. The explanation lies, as I believe, in the extreme imperfection of the geological record. Okay, but surely after all the time since Darwin, digging and discovering fossil after fossil, we have a more perfect geological record that supports evolution, right? Not even close, bud. Listen to how two renowned evolutionary biologists summarize the truth. Instead of finding the slow, smooth, and progressive changes, they saw in the fossil record rapid bursts of change, new species appearing seemingly out of nowhere and then remaining unchanged for millions of years, patterns hauntingly reminiscent of creation. The fossil record doesn't show gradual change, and every paleontologist has known that ever since Cuvier, or however you pronounce that. Okay, I could go on, but there's always going to be opposing views because on both sides of the debate, the same evidence is interpreted through different worldviews. You got to remember that, people. Facts don't say anything. People say things based on their interpretation of facts influenced by their worldview. But that's a whole other subject, and I don't want to get into it right now. Instead, hey, let's have a little fun and take a look at some popular secular articles and charts on the fossil record and see if we can learn to separate facts from interpretation of facts by asking a few simple questions. Question 1. Did the artiste take any artistic license with what I'm looking at here? Check this out because this happens all the time. Look, isn't that sweet? So cute and fluffy. Okay, why do you think the artist made these creatures appear more human-like by throwing in an affectionate smile and depicting them hanging out like a human family going to a picnic or something? Why did he draw them walking upright? Why make the shapes and colors of their eyes more human than ape? Is any of it based on actual fossil evidence? Of course not. But if you want the story of evolution to appear more convincing, you just might fill in missing gaps with your presuppositional imagination. Just saying. Question 2. Is the attention-grabbing headline or title supported by actual facts? For instance, take a look at this popular book called Why Evolution is True. We don't even have to go any further than the jacket on this one, because on it you got a dino evolving into a bird in 3 simple steps. There you go. But then on the inside, this is written, and I kid you not. The jacket depicts a chronological sequence of fossils showing the evolution of birds. We do not know whether the actual line of descent included, now wait for it, the first 3. Say what now? Doesn't that mean these 3 shouldn't be on the cover then? Which means all you got is a modern bird, right? No evolution, just a bird. Talk about worldview filling in gaps. On to question 3. What do the graphics on evolutionary charts indicate? I mean, they sure do look convincing. For instance, on this one from the dinosaur book, you got solid red columns and white columns showing gradual progression over time. But let's read the almost imperceptible 2-point font over here. It reads, tinted areas indicate solid fossil evidence, which means the white areas represent no solid fossil evidence, right? Okay, then take them away. Uh-oh, looks like patterns hauntingly reminiscent of creation, I'd say, right from their own charts. And the same thing goes for the dotted lines on this one. Look at all of them. Just so we're clear, dotted lines indicate zero evidence. Remove them and what do you get? No transitional forms or evidence of gradual progression. A bat is a bat, a kangaroo is a kangaroo, and a horse is a horse. Of course, unless, of course, the horse is Mr. Ed. Look, people, all I'm saying here is if you got facts, put them in there. If you don't, leave them out. But don't draw downright dubious, daft, dare I declare, dunderheaded dotted lines of deliberate deception dogmatically and dastardly doodle to disguise definitive data. No. Just admit what you actually see. Overwhelming evidence of living things, according to their kinds, suddenly appearing, which, as a reminder, is exactly what the Bible teaches. Now, I don't even have time to get into TV, movies, and documentaries. All I ask is that you use the same line of questioning when you watch them. And in summary, we agree with Mr. D. Geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic chain. Not then, not now, not ever. And that means the whole idea that the fossil record proves evolution has been debunked. Adios.
So if you downloaded the app, that's one of the ones that you've got in there. Make sure to put it to use. All right. Now, also on the app, you're going to see a tab that says Answering Skeptics Forrest Valkai. I did a piece of that with the younger kids when you guys were in here with one. He is a guy on TikTok that's got 1.5 million subscribers. And he took our video and broke it down and critiqued it very strongly. Well, we took his critique and we critiqued it very strongly. The only problem is that he's got 1.5 million followers on TikTok. And his followers are a lot more active than our followers because Christians are not very active and engaged in that social media realm, quite frankly. And so we get 100 to 200 complaints a day that our stuff is fake news and offensive. So our videos that used to get 30, 40, 50,000 views now get 100, 200 views because his people complain every time we put something up. So what did we do? We took his video and we're up to 6 responses, anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes long. Yeah, it's a lot. But we got to break out the arguments. This is what he said. This is what we see. And so if you wanted to watch our response to his response, you can do that on the app. Just go to Answering Skeptics Forrest Valkai. We've got 3 more episodes that we got to do. And as soon as things get settled with Bub, I asked you to pray for Bub, he and I will finish critiquing the rest of his critique of us. And then you make an informed decision. See who's blowing smoke. But there is good information on there for you to actually see both sides of the argument. How do we deal with somebody that comes off after us and is antagonistic? Now, there's one more piece of evidence that I want to share with you, to me, that is very, very consistent with rapid deposition. And it's a place that Juan and I were just out at, about 8 months ago? Mount St. Helens? We had the privilege this is like not done very often, but we know someone who got the passes to take us down into Mount St. Helens, all the way down to this canyon, this 1/40th the size of the Grand Canyon that was carved out by the quote-unquote Toutle River. No, it wasn't. But if you didn't know that, you would go down there and you'd see the little river running through there. You'd see this canyon. You'd say, well, that river carved that out. That's not what happened. Unless you were there to see what happened, you can make some assumptions about it and be totally wrong. What you see, what the facts are, is you see rapid deposition. You see all this, and then you see the layer. You see all that? Well, there were people there to observe when this was laid down. They know exactly when it was laid down. And instead of thinking 1 year, thousands of layers, thousands of years, this section was one deposition. This section was one deposition. This section was one deposition. This happened in 1980, 1982, May, June, March. Unless you were there to see this laid down, and those are sedimentary layers. Boom, 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 boom. And it happened very quickly. By the way, any of you ever planning on going out like to Oregon, Mount St. Helens, anything like that? Anybody? No? If you get a chance, go. There's a great ministry out there. I like making people aware of other ministries. We're not the only guys in town, right? There's great ministries out there. And they're called Mount St. Helens Creation Center. And they'll take you on tours. Can't get you down into the canyon, man, but they can get you out and you can see some stuff. And they've got teaching, and they're really good. So look them up, Mount St. Helens Creation Center, if you're ever going to go out that direction. That layer upon layer upon layer upon layer very quickly supports rapid deposition. All of it. So is there evidence for rapid deposition? Yeah. But what about global? Now, this is big because it can't just be certain areas that it happened quickly. It has to be all around the globe. Is there evidence to support global deposition? Best whale fossils, I already told Mr. Mike and Miss Kathleen this one. The best whale fossils on the planet, where are they found? The best whale fossils on the planet. They're found in some unique places. Egypt. Okay? How about these? This is another one. I mean, these are phenomenal. This is in the mountains of Chile. Pakistan. These are all places that are well known for their seafront property, right? This is desert. Mountains of Chile. Whale fossils. You want evidence for global deposition? All right. This is an ammonite, right? They lived in the ocean. There's a couple other things that lived on the bottom of the ocean called crinoids and trilobites. You ever hear of the trilobites? If you ever want to see something kind of cool, anybody ever planning to go into Utah? Utah? Yeah. Utah, go down to Utah, Moab, look in the phone book or just do a search on the internet, dig trilobite fossils. It's about an hour outside of Moab, Utah. They are not Christian. But you can get out there and you dig trilobites, and I'm guaranteeing you, you're going to find trilobites. They are literally laying on the ground. There's so many of them. And what were they? They were just little tiny bugs, but they were cool. I mean, way cool. Their eyes, when you study trilobites, they had such unique eyes. We want to say this was a primitive thing because this lived millions and millions of years ago. Lived on the bottom of the ocean, primitive. Have any of you ever gone spearfishing, snorkeling? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. I'll never forget the first time I went spearfishing. I went down, I saw this fish, I shot it, I came up, and I thought I had shot a fish. And when I got up and got out of the water, I couldn't believe that I hit this thing. It was so small. Our eyes aren't designed to be underwater, so everything is magnified. It gets bigger underwater. A trilobite, they didn't just have a single set of eyes. They had eyes that were so complex. I think it's over 100 different kinds of eyes these things had. 3 lenses to put everything in perfect perspective underwater. This is a primitive life. No, this thing was cool. Well, where these are found with the crinoids, with the trilobites, is in a very interesting place. Maybe you've heard of, 18 feet from the summit, 18 meters, I should say, 18 meters from the summit of Mount Everest, they came back with crinoids, trilobites, brachiopods. Those live on the bottom of the ocean. This is a trilobite, by the way. And this is just one kind. There's hundreds. They're really a cool thing. And that's a crinoid. By the way, that supports global deposition. So is there evidence to support rapid deposition and global deposition? Yeah, but wait. There's more. Remember him? Remember Billy May? Younger people don't know who I'm talking about, man. Did you know this is one of those weird bunny trails? Billy May is not the guy that said, but wait, there's more. Who was the guy that said, but wait, there's more? Remember the commercials? Come on, mature generation. Who was that? Ron Popeil. He was the guy that always did that. But everybody thought it was Billy May. But it was, and you young people, this guy sold something new every week, man. It was like crazy stuff. Yeah. A lot of people still have some of those. So, how about this? What about evidence for rapid and global deposition at the exact same time? Is there evidence for that? Yeah. The very first thing that I had the opportunity to work on, I'm a brand new Christian, riding in an airplane, going out to Oregon to see my father. I'm in the cockpit because I was an air traffic controller, hence the speaking quickly thing. I was an air traffic controller for 24 and a half years. The last 8.5 years of my career, I was at O'Hare, world's busiest. That's where I really learned to speak quickly. And so I'm in the airplane cockpit before 9/11. We could ride up there for training. And I started witnessing to the pilot and the co-pilot. They both turned out to be Christians. How crazy is that, right? They started talking about creation and evolution. My first Sunday school teacher taught me, you take evolution, you put it in the Bible, God used it, God directed it. That's all I knew, so that's what I believed. So I said that to them. Oh, yeah, we don't have to worry about evolution. The sequence in Genesis is the same as the evolutionary sequence. God used it, God directed it. Cockpits are pretty tight. You know what I'm saying? They're not like first class. they're tight. And a big guy like me, they're real tight. And I'm sitting in there, and the co-pilot is like twitching and jittering. And I'm like, what is wrong with that guy? And he looks over at the pilot, and then he turns around and says, Carl, I'm sorry, but that's incorrect. And I'm like, really, why? He did something that I'm eternally thankful for. He reached into his bag. He pulled out his Bible. He opened his Bible. He went to Genesis. Here's the sequence in Genesis. Here's the sequence according to the evolutionary model. Contradiction, contradiction, contradiction. I was blown out of the water. I had never seen anybody use the Bible as an authority. I grew up with I think. This man used the Bible as an authority. And that was like, what? And that was the catalyst to get me to start going and digging. That's why I try to do this to you. Don't trust me. Go prove me wrong. That's what I did. And the more I dug, the more I started. It's like, whoa, Word of God is the Word of God. It's not fairy tale. It's not fable. It's not just good spiritual moral stuff. It's real. That's where my conviction came from because I got in and started digging. That's what I want for y'all. So anyway, I find out about this creation stuff. I don't trust them. My Sunday school teacher taught me evolution was right. Now they're telling me that it's wrong. So I'm like checking both sides. You know, I'm like putting my toe on both sides of the water to see who's telling me the truth, right? I get this thing that shows, this is the actual drawing, they found a whale that was polystrate. Remember? Polystrate. So it's vertical, buried on its tail with horizontal layers. Now, would that destroy slow, gradual processes over millions of years? A whale 75 to 80 feet long, standing there on its tail for millions of years to get covered up, that would destroy millions of years. And I'm like, ooh, that's really good. That would blow it out of the water, but I don't trust anybody. So what did I do? I found out where it was found. It was found in Lompoc, California. So I called the Los Angeles Museum of Natural History, and I said, man, I just got done reading this report about they found a whale on its tail that was polystrate. Do you guys know anything about it? Let me put you in touch with somebody in the back. They put me in the back, touch with the guy. He picks up the phone, Dr. Lawrence Barnes. I don't know anybody, right? Hey, I found this thing and talked about this whale, buried on its tail, horizontal, polystrate. That would blow millions of years out of the water. Do you know anything about it? Yeah, I'm the guy who excavated it. Get out of here. True story. You're the guy that dug it out? Yeah, they found it out in this diatomaceous deposit, and they called me, and we've still got it in the collection here in the thing. We've never put it out on display. I said, so how do you deal with that? Doesn't that blow the millions of years out of the water? He said, you've been lied to. It was not polystrate standing on its tail. What happened was you had a baleen whale that died, and it was laying on its back. And then it was covered up with all the horizontal layers. The flesh rotted off. The bones fossilized. And then you had a geologic uplift that tipped this up. So the whale was found on its tail, which was missing, by the way. They never found the tail. So it was buried on its tail, but it was not something standing there where all the layers went up around it. So there you go. You've been lied to, Carl. But then something struck me. I started digging. Whale dies, lays on its back. How thick would a whale laying on its back be? From the back to the top of its belly. How tall do you think it would be? How about let's be conservative. How about 6 to 10 feet? Is that okay? Hello? That's okay? That's not like going, oh, let me give you evangelical numbers. We got 10,000 people here today, all right? 6 to 10 feet. Conservative? All right. This was found in what the guy told me was a single diatomaceous deposit. A single diatomaceous deposit. By the way, anybody know what diatomaceous means? I had to look it up. You're smarter than me. I had to go do a bunch of digging. It means it's made up of diatoms. Anybody know what a diatom is? Had to look it up. What's a diatom? They're cool. Take a breath. Go ahead. Breathe in. Exhale. Breathe in. Exhale. One of those two breaths is because of that thing right there, a diatom. It's a photosynthesizing algae. You know, we think that down in South America, you know, they get rid of the rainforest. We're not going to get enough oxygen up top here. We're all going to die. Excuse me. Not one breath of that oxygen in South America ever makes its way to North America. It never gets past the Andes. The Andes are too tall. The air never gets past that. Our oxygen, 1 out of 2 breaths, comes because of this thing right here, a photosynthesizing algae. And they are cool. They are like little jewels. This is their skeletal structure, all right? And they literally look like jewels, and they're tiny. They're tiny, tiny. This is a hair under electron microscope. I told you, you look at anything that God made, cool, man-made junk. You can put 4 diatoms across a hair. These are tiny. And there's all kind of different shapes and look, you know, they literally look like jewels. And you have seen pictures of them and you probably don't realize it. If you've ever seen any pictures from outer space where the astronauts send back the pictures over the water and you see these patches of, anybody ever seen that? Those are diatoms. And what happens is, let's imagine that you've got a glacier, right? And a big old hunk of glacier falls off into the water. We see those pictures all the time. Well, guess what is inside of that glacier? It's been moving, it's been creeping, it's been running over rocks that have mineral content in them. So when that ice falls into the water, that mineral content falls in there, and the diatoms feed, and they blow up. The more food, these things breed quick. But when the food goes away, just like us, what happens? They die. And they know the exact rate that these things die at. So, you've got these diatoms, they call them sea snow. They run out of food. They start dying. They start falling to the bottom of the ocean. There's over 1/2 mile of diatomaceous deposit on the bottom of the ocean right now. And it builds up at the rate of 1 inch every 1,000 years. So 1/2 mile in the bottom of the ocean right now, 1 inch every 1,000 years. How long did it take for all that to lay down? You do the math. I can't figure it out. My wife's not here. Right? But here's the problem. If it's 1 inch every 1,000 years, a whale that's 6 to 10 feet thick, how did it get covered up in a single diatomaceous deposit? It didn't. So I could show you actual evidence that this inch 1,000 years is not accurate. Maybe now it is, but there are conditions in the past that would have caused these things to happen much more quickly. By the way, I wonder how we'd get a lot of mineral content in the water so the diatoms would eat, feed, and explode. I wonder if there was a global flood that ripped up all kind of stuff, brought it into the ocean. Guys, diatomaceous deposit screams of rapid catastrophic stuff. So I did all this research, and I took it to a guy named Andrew Snelling. I worked with Andrew for a long time. He's at Answers in Genesis, the people that did the Creation Museum. That's where I started in ministry, and he's there now. Good guy, like Andrew. He was on a documentary that if you get the chance to watch it, I'd highly recommend it. To me, this is probably the best documentary that was done from a creationist perspective that's been made, period. Very good quality. Is Genesis history. Very well done. I took all the research and gave it to Andrew, and he wrote an article on it, and this is what he put in there. The current uniformitarian, slow and gradual, model for diatomite deposition is not capable of explaining the fossilization of the Lompoc whale. Only a catastrophic model is consistent with all the evidence. So if you want evidence for rapid, catastrophic, global, you don't have to look too far. It is all there. When we take people down the Grand Canyon, one of the things that we show them is a layer in the red wall limestone. It's about a 6-foot layer in the red wall limestone that is filled with, can you see the ring, 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 ring? That's not a phone. And phones don't even make that noise anymore. But you see what I'm talking about? That is, it's an animal. It's a nautiloid. It's not like the nautiloids we have today. These were massive nautiloids. That's a person, put these nautiloids in perspective. in this section of the canyon, right here, it runs from up here, which is Harper's Ferry, and runs all the way 100 miles through the Grand Canyon, this layer that they find these nautiloids in. Actually, it goes even further. It goes all the way past Las Vegas, well over 100 miles. It's like 180 miles. Inside those layers, they estimate there's 1 billion nautiloid fossils, 1 billion. And some of them are laying on their side, like you saw, the rings. But then there's some like this, the circle. This was at least 6 feet tall, at least. Okay. Anybody understanding where I'm going with this? If you've got some of the fossils that are laying down horizontally, and then you've got others that are, what's that called again? Polystrate, at least 6 feet. Guys, this does not support slow gradual processes. This is rapid deposition. And do you understand that the sandstone layers that you see in the Grand Canyon is the exact same sandstone that you see over in Petra in Jordan? You see these layers all over the planet. You want evidence for rapid global deposition? It's there. You just got to go look. We have to teach a generation how to take and apply their faith in this world around us. I'm going to skip this part. Population, we don't need that. Oh, by the way, I was showing the ark picture to earlier, and I couldn't, are they still here? I was trying to show them the scale. One, I think, showed you a picture. We took our debunked bus and got some pictures by it. But I had the privilege to be there for the opening day. And I want you to just see the scale. I highly recommend you go here. I don't work with the ministry anymore, but again, they do a great job. This was from opening day. And just to put this in perspective for you, oh man, are the folks here that I showed this picture, or the other picture to earlier? No? Okay. Do you see these people right here? That's 5,000 people. You want to get a perspective of the boat? Go take a look at it. It's amazing. And that's a debunked bus, just to put it there for perspective. Guys, Noah's Ark, fact or fantasy? I'm going to tell you right now. When you watch the debunked on how they could fit all the animals on the boat, it absolutely works. So who cares about this, Carl? Look, if God gave us a history that explains the geology that we see in the world around us, and he did, and it does, but we don't trust what he said, which many don't, then why should we stick around? 50 to 88% of the kids raised in the church gone by the time they're age 18. If they can't trust this book that tells us what happened here in the beginning, why should they trust what's going on now and much less the future? I found some research that I'm going to wrap up with. This is going to be like, what? This is like a major shift. Yeah, it is. Because I think there's a direct connection between not trusting this and seeing what's going on in the world. Fixed Point Foundation did some research, and they went to the Secular Student Alliance. You know there's such a thing. You have Campus Crusade for Christ, Crew. You have those kind of things, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Well, there's secular ones as well. Secular Student Alliance, Free Thought Society, the Atheist Society. They have them at the college campuses. So this group, Fixed Point Foundation, went to the heads of those secular student associations, and they asked them a simple question. What led you to become an atheist? And I want to share some of the research with you, and maybe you'll understand why we do what we do. Ages 14 to 17 were decisive. These were the big years. For most, the high school years were the time when they embraced unbelief. The internet factored heavily into their conversion to atheism. Parents, grandparents, you better understand the power that tool that you put in their hands, that they live with 24/7. You better understand the power and the impact that it's having on your kids and your grandkids. When our participants were asked to cite key influences in their conversion to atheism, people, books, seminars, etc., we expected to hear frequent references to the names of the new atheist. We did not once. That wasn't what was impacting them. What was? Instead, we heard vague references to videos that they had watched on YouTube or website forums. How many of you in here have watched the show? It's on Netflix, if I'm not mistaken, called Social Dilemma. Okay, I see 3 hands. Frankly, do I get a dime from it? No, but I'm going to tell you this. You need to watch it. Am I right? You got to watch it. These are the people that helped start this whole thing. The people that invented, the guy that invented the thumbs up, right? And they're telling you the impact that it's having and how the whole system works. You need to be aware. Social Dilemma. It is a secular video. It is not made by Christians. It's worth watching. Church became, this is a quote from one of the presidents, church became all about ceremony, hand-holding, and kumbaya, Phil said with a look of disgust. I missed my old youth pastor. He actually knew the Bible. Now the president of his campus's SSA, Phil was once the president of his Methodist church's youth group. He loved his church. They weren't just going through the motions. His pastor, a rock star trapped in a pastor's body, and most of all, his youth leader, Jim, a passionate man. By the way, you know, this is something that I found very interesting. Juan told you that we did 15 camps over the last it was actually 9 weeks. No, we did 19 camps in 9 weeks between the 4 speakers that we have. 19 camps in 9 weeks. I was home 3 days in June, 4 days in July, and 8 days, 9 days in August because I got COVID. And I had to cancel one of my speaking events. First time in over 20 years that I had to postpone a speaking event, right? So I was home 10 days. We were rocking. That's why my voice is still where it is, right? We were rocking June, July, August. It was crazy. 19 camps, 9 weeks. And you know the number one comment that I'm seeing coming from this younger generation? Every one of those camps have invited us, every one of us back. It's like, man, you got to come back. Because you guys, you're the first time that I've ever seen a speaker that doesn't speak and disappear, which I'm blown out of the water. What are you going to do? You're a camp speaker, so you go speak and then you hide till you speak again? The real ministry is when you're out on the sports field with these guys, when you're eating meals with these guys, and that's where the real ministry is taking place. This is dog and pony show, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to you. This is a guy can come up here and put on game face for you. But when we're sitting out there and we're out on the course and you beat me in handball, which I don't like to lose at anything, that's when the real thing comes out. Every one of them. You guys are there, and you're passionate. There's a hunger for people that really genuinely believe what they say they believe and care deep enough and are bold about it. There's a hunger there. I don't know. I'm just telling you. Jim's Bible studies were particularly meaningful to him. He admired the fact that Jim didn't dodge the tough questions or chapters or the tough questions. He didn't always have satisfying answers or answers at all, but he didn't run away from the questions either. The way he taught the Bible made me feel smart. Listening to his story, I had to remind myself that Phil was an atheist, not a seminary student, recalling those who had inspired him to enter the pastorate. During his junior year of high school, the church, in an effort to attract more young people, wanted Jim to teach less and play more. I cannot tell you how many churches that I've been in that this is exactly what's happening. We got to have more fun. We want to attract the kids. So we need the stage that has the smoke and the mirrors and the flashing lights, and that's what's. If you go do the research, the number one thing that attracted was not smoke and mirrors. It was not cool music. It was not the cool factor. It was good, solid teaching. That was the number one thing that attracted younger generation. Go do the research. Don't trust me. We go this route. Or we do go this route. Yeah. Church, over 30,000. Washington, D.C. They call me up. Carl, we want you to come and speak to our youth. We want you to do 2 10-minute power messages. A what? A 10-minute power message. What's a 10-minute power message? We do it every week. We do 20 minutes of ping pong, foosball, popcorn, 20 minutes of worship, 10-minute power message, 5 minutes of prayer, then we send them out. I said, well, thank you very much for the offer, but I can't do it. What do you mean you can't do it? I said, dude, I'm long-winded. I can't tell you my name in 10 minutes. We do it every week. I said, you're better than me. I can't do it. I turned them down. Church of 30,000. They freak. I get a call from them the next week. We'll give you 2 35-minute messages. Would you do it for 2 35-minute messages? Yeah. I go out there. They take me through their sanctuary for just the youth, not the main campus. Youth, 2 sanctuaries that hold 1,000 each, just for the youth. Thank you. And then the one main room where the sanctuaries were off of had every video game under the sun, had the skateboard ramp that was like from here to the floor, where the guys are jumping off and doing that, flying up into the air thing. You name it, they had it. And the youth pastor's walking me around saying, well, Carl, yeah, we got the way. And by the way, when you lose the kids tonight, just call the band back up on stage and we'll play music and we'll get them back under control. I said, I won't lose them. I took 40 minutes. I took the extra 5 minutes. They're not going to let me come back. I'm taking the 5 minutes. First session finished. Kids emptied that room. I've never seen a room that size empty that quick. I walked over to my wife. I said, I must have lost these kids. I have never seen. They ran out of the room. Ran. Pew. 10 minutes later, when we started the next session, they had run next door, got all the kids off the video games, off the skateboard ramp. It was standing room only the second session. We finished. The youth pastor comes up to me as I'm walking out. He's like, how did you do that? How did I do what? These kids, they won't sit for 10-minute power messages. They just sat for 40 minutes and they wanted more. How'd you do that? I said, man, I'm just telling you, I don't think it's me. I think it's the fact that we have a generation that wants something that's real, makes sense, and is applicable. No more games, no more mamby-pamby, no more drinking Cokes through dirty socks of neighbors. Yes, I've had that, where they're warming the kids up for me. No more eating the gum out of my dirty, nasty mouth for $20. Yeah, I've had that too, with the guy that was warming the kids up for me. Guys, we don't need that. We need to speak the truth and we need to speak application. Difference of opinion over this new strategy led to Jim's dismissal. He was replaced by Savannah, an attractive 20-something who, according to Phil, didn't know a thing about the Bible. The church got what it wanted. The youth group grew, but it lost Phil. Here's what they learned, and I'll give this to you. If you want it, good. Here's what they learned about these kids who were the presidents of the secular student associations. They had attended church. Every one of them had grown up in church. Most of our participants had not chosen their worldview from an ideological neutral position at all, but in reaction to Christianity, not Islam, not Buddhism, Christianity. The mission and the message of their church was vague. These students heard plenty of messages encouraging social justice, community involvement, and being good, but they seldom saw the relationship between that message, Jesus Christ, and the Bible. They felt their churches offered superficial answers to life's difficult questions. Why do we do what we do? Why would we come out and talk about laws of logic? I don't understand half those laws. When we do our class together and Juan teaches laws of logic and a P is this and Q is this and R, and I'm like, you know what I get out of that? Mind your P's and Q's. That's it, right? He can do all that stuff. That's not my gift. When our participants were asked what they found unconvincing about the Christian faith they spoke of, these are the things that they identified. Why do we talk about what we talk about? This isn't us. We didn't do this research. Evolution versus creation, sexuality, reliability of the biblical text, and Jesus is the only way. So I don't care what source you're going to, guys. If you're going to go look at Christians that are no longer Christian, which I don't believe really happens personally, I don't think you can lose your salvation. God said that when you're in his hand, no one can take you out of his hand. No one includes me. I can't remove myself from his hand. And if somebody has lost their faith, they never had it. You might have done ritual, you might have played game, but you didn't really have it. So what did we deal with over the last couple days with you? Evolution, creation. Didn't really hit sexuality, but Juan does a whole section on that as well. Reliability of the biblical text. And Jesus is the only way, because that's what I'm going to tell you right now. Look, I love apologetics, but apologetics doesn't save anybody. It's at the name of Jesus, every knee is going to bow and every tongue is going to confess. And the only reason I will use the apologetics is because I want you to trust a book that tells you and I that Jesus loved you, loved me, loved every one of us on this planet so much that while we were yet sinners, he came and he died for us while we were spitting on him. There's not a thing we can do to deserve that. Nothing we can do to deserve that. And he still did it for us because he loved us. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what's been done to you. And by the way, unfortunately, in this culture, we have to now start adding that because there's so much abuse in this culture. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what's been done to you. What matters is what he did for you. We have hope because we have a man named Jesus Christ, who was God in flesh, who came and died on a cross for each and every one of us. What you do with that, look, we're not going to be held accountable for what we don't know. We're going to be held accountable for what we do know and what we do with it. Some had gone to church hoping to find answers to these questions. Others hoped to find answers to questions of personal significance and purpose and ethics. I'm going to finish with a short clip here that we do man on the street stuff. We train a generation to go out and do man on the street stuff. And one of the team members is a young lady named Gabby. They live in the Atlanta, Georgia area, about an hour north of Atlanta, Georgia. And so they went out and they were interviewing people on the street. And I could show you this whole thing, but I won't because of time. I'm calling the lady Abigail. Let's call her Abigail. I'm not going to give you a real name. So Abigail, I blocked her face out for a reason. Abigail, do you read the Bible? No. Abigail, do you believe the Bible has mistakes or errors? Of course, every written publication has mistakes and errors. Abigail, can you tell me any of the mistakes and errors in there? No. Abigail, do you believe in evolution? Oh yes, I'm a firm believer in evolution. Abigail, can you give me any evidence to support why you believe in evolution? Well, no, not really, because I don't really know that much about science. Okay, so Abigail, you don't trust the Bible because it's got mistakes and errors, but you haven't read it, and you don't know that much about it. But you believe in evolution, but you don't know anything about that. Do you see a problem there? Abigail, how do you get life from non-life? Ooh, well, I think I learned about that in junior high. No, you didn't. Okay? When we ask these questions, if we get a young earth creationist, we're asking them questions at their worldview. So we're not attacking just a non-Christian. If I get a young earth creationist, they think I'm an evolutionist because I'm asking them questions based at their worldview. Right? Because here's what I'm finding. Don't care if you're so conservative you can't wear buttons on your clothing, or you are so liberal that you got to walk around with crystals attached to your forehead. Everybody believes something, but very few can give an answer why they believe what they say they believe. So me, I want to ask questions at their worldview to get them to think. The interview is done. Gabby's done. She puts the microphone down on the table, and then Abigail says this. Now, I want to read this quote to you one more time. One more time. Because when I read the quote, this had not happened to us. There, and then there. Okay? Some had gone to church hoping to find answers to these questions. Others, I didn't put the S in there. Others hoped to find answers to questions of personal significance, purpose, and ethics. And then we have this happen.
And the thing is, I have to put work, but
Yeah.
I grew up, I guess, an atheist. Now I'm very agnostic, and I do I go to church. I am a worship leader there, but I have.
You're what?
You're a worship leader? But the hard part is,
I would have never guessed.
The hard part is, I can't get myself to believe it. But I've been looking for everything, and I've been looking for someone to explain it.
She's a worship leader at a mega church, Andy Stanley's church. And she's looking for someone to explain it. I'm telling you right now, folks, we have people that live right next door to us. You do not have to go to Haiti. Am I telling you not to go? Praise God, that's an important ministry. Praise God. But you don't have to go to Haiti. You don't have to leave your front door by much. You want a real cheap mission trip? I'm going to give you all the cheapest mission trip you will ever get right now. Write it down. Next week, tomorrow Sunday, when you come to church tomorrow, whatever church you go to, sit in a different seat. Cheapest mission trip you'll ever take. There's a whole new world out here, I'm telling you. You're going to mix everything up. Pastor might not like you. He's like, hold up, you usually sit over there. What are you doing over here? You're messing me up, right? Sit in a new seat. There's a whole new world. Guys, There are people that are looking for someone to explain it. And here's the mind-blowing moment. This I'll finish with this, and then we're going to do our Q&A thing. Mind-blowing moment to me from the research that they did. Without fail, the former church-attending students they interviewed expressed respect for Christians who unashamedly embraced biblical teaching. We think they're going to hate on us. And what I am finding is that when I get into these conversations, and I'm not mean-spirited, I'm not calling them a jerk or anything like that, but I'm going to challenge. Good things happen. Last quote, Michael, a political science major at Dartmouth, told us that he is drawn to Christians like that, adding, I really can't consider a Christian a good moral person if he isn't trying to convert me. I'm not asking you to answer this out loud, but how many of you in here can tell me the name of the last 3 people that you shared your faith with that don't know the Lord Jesus Christ in the last week, the last month, the last year? That's got to change. We have been sent here for a purpose, and that purpose is to shine in the darkness. You and I have a privilege and an opportunity to do just that. But I guarantee you, you're not going to talk about your faith if you're not confident in what you believe. It's the greatest tool that Satan has. We identified it at the very beginning, and it's going to continue on. Doubt. That's the tool. Be aware of it, overcome it. The truth will set you free. All right, David, Tyler, thank you guys.
Thank you, Carl. Wow, this is not normal. You guys are not normal. Give up a Friday night, made it through 4 sessions today, 4.5 if you were in the youth room, and you're still here. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Let's make it 5 minutes. Let's see who's the real holy spiritual ones that hang out for the Q&A, all right? Thank you. 5 minutes. We'll start in 5 minutes, okay? Thanks.
Juan said he'd take on the Trinity question for the lady that asked me.
Trinity question.
No.
Yeah, I know that. Bro, can you grab me a napkin real quick?